Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Merry Meet the Monster with me, Madam Ansa. Today is a very special day in our Advent calendar journey because this is the day when you get to meet one of the OG monsters of the Yuletide, Perchta. Now, Perchta, it is pronounced Perchta, but written as Perchta, so you may hear it both ways. She is worthy of a deeper dive than we can do in this short video today. But here's a few of my favorite facts about her. Interestingly, her special feast day falls on Epiphany, the last day of Christmas, which is January 6th. Also the special day of La Befana, the Christmas witch. Now, Perchta is the magnificent, the splendid one. She is sometimes considered analogous to the wintry goddesses Frigga or Hulda, and like those goddesses, she appears in both a lovely and benevolent aspect and also a harsh and punitive one. In the Yuletide calendar artwork, we see her here in her fair and youthful aspect. Now notice her telltale swan foot, which is there to symbolize her shape-changing abilities. As you can also see in the background of this art, her devotees wear these amazing headdresses, which were described by a spectator in Salzburg in 1907 as what surely must be the most immense and eccentric headdresses in the world. But wait till you hear more. These continue to be quotes from this spectator in Salzburg. 2 diamond-shaped boards, in all 10 or 12 feet high, are covered with red velvet. On them are fixed dozens of silver watches and chains and every kind of ornament the Perchten have been able to collect or borrow. Looking glasses, artificial flowers, pictures of the Virgin, bracelets, necklaces, coins. At the very top comes a crown. You can see these giant diamonds referred to again in the mask that I hope to show you at the end of this video. I also want to mention the beautiful Perchten. These are the men who sport these wearable altars on their heads. They are accompanied traditionally by other men wearing the garb of women. There seems to be a pride in being unclockable as a biological male when dressed as the Perchta. And there's also the wild Perchten, who are the hairy wild men, the chaos monkeys that wreak havoc on the traditional proceedings. That's the good time I want to have. And now I am delighted to invite to join me here in front of our hearth an epic artist, costumer, and human being, Christi Bell Owen, to talk about a tribute piece that she made to the Yuletide goddess, Perchta.
Okay. We are live. This is Madam Ansa here on Merry Meet the Monsters, and we have a special guest here today. This is a very special day for us because it is all about Perchta or Perchta, and we've got somebody here who has a lot to say on that subject. So please welcome her. Hi.
Hi.
Tell everybody a bit about yourself.
So my name is Christy, and I am a local costumer, maker of general whimsy and spookiness, located in Richmond, Virginia. I have a background in historic costume and fashion design. I did costuming for film and television for a number of years, as well as my newest kind of endeavors would be teaching costuming and wearable art to teenagers through the VMFA in the summer months.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Can I ask, did you go to school for costuming or like has seamstressing always been a passion of yours? How does one come to what you do?
There are multiple ways to come to what I do. I did take a little bit more of a predictable path. Of course, I was one of those kids who was chopping up like tights and my mom's scarves to make Barbie clothes and then graduated to making stuff for myself by just laying down on the fabric and kind of tracing around myself and then cutting and badly sewing it together by hand, which then led me to pursuing visual arts in high school. And then that led me to studying fashion design first at Philadelphia University and then transferring to VCU, where I graduated from ultimately.
So what I'm hearing is natural talent and interest, also with gobs and scads of credibility building skills on top of your natural interest.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, what is it? Of course, everyone that I'm working with as far as this project goes, we're all here to talk about holiday cryptids. Now, I'm a big Krampus gal. I'm a big
Mhm.
Perchta gal. I know you are a Perchta gal too. So, tell me about your interest in her and what she compelled you to do.
Oh boy. Well, nothing as heinous as she does, for sure. Um, so Perchta being associated so heavily with the fiber arts, and the fiber arts being very closely woven, ha,
Oh,
to women's work, as it were, through the ages, and her making sure that women are doing what they need to do to prepare for the winter and then the subsequent seasons where you will ultimately need new yarn and new clothing, for weaving and dyeing and knitting and all of those things. The legend of her coming to a house, and if the person had not done their allotted amount of spinning to be prepared for the season, then she would slit you open, take out your innards, fill you back up with trash, and sew you back up. That's really metal and super intense, but also shows if you don't do your work, you're going to be left out in the cold, and that might result in you, I don't know, dying. So do
right.
your work.
So it's almost like a metaphorical or poetic way to describe the very real consequences of not having a work ethic that's commensurate with your need to survive.
Yeah, exactly. It
Got
it
it.
wasn't, there was no Amazon, there was no mall down the street. It was every single fiber needed to be extracted and then dealt with and put through the process before clothing could be a thing.
Right. And of course, many of the climates that our Yuletide Advent calendar adventures, has moved through tend to be very severe, as you say, very metal, rather extreme climates.
Yeah, just a bit.
You're definitely managing a lot of cold. Even in some cases when we're dealing with warmer climates, then it's a matter of managing the wet, which can still get you.
Yeah, and then the combination of the two is lethal.
Yes, absolutely. Would you be willing then to walk us through a bit of what choices you made artistically? Now, at the point at which you are watching this video, my friends, you will have hopefully seen some video of Christi in her amazing costume, so that you'll be able to vision in your mind as she walks you through not only the pieces that she built, but where she took them artistically and what her historical influences were.
Yes. So as a historic costumer, naturally, when I found Perchta through this story of Krampus, I found that she appears in folklore somewhere in the 15th to 16th century, roughly in the area of what we now call Germany. So I immediately went there to that place, that time, and looked at what women were wearing at the time and very much based the costume on that. So you see a tight collar with some frilly bits, with some beading and very geometric kind of lace that was supposed to look like kind of a shirt or a smock, and then a bodice that goes over the whole thing and laces up, that zigzag kind of spiral lacing that we see. And it's so common in German women's clothing of the time. It doesn't really matter where your station is in society. That's just how your clothes were put together at the time. But I also made sure that some of the layers were translucent, or you could kind of see through it, choosing lace and gauze. So you can see all the various layers and components that go into it. It had a really awesome kind of ghostly effect,
Mm-hmm.
but also showed that you were dressing in all these layers in this climate, in this time, to make sure that you weren't going to freeze to death.
Mm-hmm.
That also informed my decision to make the cloak out of various velvets and faux furs. I would have loved real fur, but I couldn't get my hands on it. I couldn't
That
find
cloak is amazing.
Oh, thank you. It weighs 1,000
Really
pounds.
amazing.
But yeah, choosing velvet and things like that, because those were common fabrics of the time, especially in the era, but they would have worn linen or, flax linen next to the skin. And then the outer garments would have been various weights and weaves of wool, because wool is just amazing in general. But it all ties back to having fiber that needs to be processed into cloth. And that is just 1,000% Perchta's story. I then kind of took it in this left direction of, let me cover it with blood and various red beading situations to show that, yeah, she can manifest as this beautiful woman. She has a dual aspect in that way. She can be seen as a beautiful woman, or she can manifest as this ugly hag that's going to kill you. So I kind of brought the two together. And she's a bloody, beautiful woman with some tattered kind of effervescence about her. And I feel like it really did the character justice.
I think so too. That's why you're here. I was amazed. I mean, I am from a culture of costume wearers and cosplayers and costume builders and so forth, but I was so taken by the mixture of using historical shapes, materials, means, the awareness of historical costuming and structure, and then your choice to infuse that with artistry, with a narrative intent. I thought that not only was a beautiful and successful piece, but was something that was really worth bringing to our viewers to understand that that's a choice you can make as an artist.
And I think it's a very effective choice. I almost wish more people would do that. But I don't know, maybe that's what makes me unique as an artist.
Maybe people are that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation. I want people to understand, because we live in a time of fast fashion, and, we don't have to think about where things come from, even though the answer is often slave labor. It's just been outsourced to other places. People who aren't getting paid, environments that aren't being honored, and so forth. And so there's this piece about wanting to remind ourselves how much love and effort often goes into something that is made ethically, like with consideration of ethics, aside from artistic intent, just making real things. That is such a powerful DIY way to try to live your life, even some percentage of the time.
Yeah, I'm a total advocate for slow fashion, secondhand, doing everything in that way to take yourself out of that fast fashion cycle, because it's so vicious and it's so gross. I really, really hate it. I highly recommend that people look into where your clothes are coming from. You will be shocked if you have not even thought about it. Just look into it.
Yes, and know also, my friends, that heavy is the head that has the information. I mean, everything that we're surrounded with, my disco dress. Yes, I got this gold disco dress in a thrift store. It is, I did not pull it directly out of that stream, but, I'm sure that it has its own dark history, right? All of these plastic flowers, everything around you represents a set of choices. And so don't drive yourself mad with despair at how difficult your choices are, but it's still worth getting some knowledge about how the choices we make affect others.
Yeah, just be a little bit intentional.
Yeah.
Kind of the best we can do right now.
Yes, absolutely. Now, speaking of how things are made and what's involved, could you tell us a bit about how many individual pieces, how many yards of material, and how many hours do you suppose could you possibly imagine that you logged making this one particular narrative creation?
Oh, man. I think my total time on Perchta was somewhere in the 24-hour region total. Yards of fabric. Of the velvet alone, there's at least 10. At least 10. A lot of the rest of the costume I was able to use from scraps and remnants, and I was intentional in that way, making those choices of, I have these weird shaped bits of fabric. How can I cobble this together into a garment? Especially the red lace that is on Perchta's cloak was a remnant. The tie are just strips of taffeta that I had left over. Let's see. And how many pieces? There's her cloak. And then there's the bodice. There is the collar bit. Then there's the smock. Then there's the outer petticoat. There's the under petticoat. There's the one under that. A set of stays that I borrowed from my 18th century stuff. And then a base layer underneath all that. So what is that, 9? 9 layers, 9 pieces. Not including shoes.
Yes, not including shoes. And of course, the magnificent, giant, menacing pair of scissors.
Yes, also the scissors that I found from a legitimate tinker at an 18th century market fair some years ago.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. I guess my next question is just what are you going to build next, or what have you been up to as far as narrative costuming art?
My latest kind of endeavors have been taking Oogie Boogie, the character from Nightmare Before Christmas, and placing them. I don't think Boogie has a gender, even though he says Boogeyman, but placing Boogie into the 18th century. So if you look on my Instagram and Facebook, you can see how I took the character of Oogie Boogie and kind of all that wonderful Tim Burton-ness and distilled it into this 1780s gown of incredibleness. And of course, you know, as every maker does, I see issues with it and go, oh, I need to fix this, I need to fix that. But it's my latest, most complete piece. After that, I plan on kind of heading into the 1890s and doing some Crimson Peak inspired things. And I'm very much hoping to make an appearance as a designer in a fashion show at a particular sci-fi fantasy steampunk convention, TeslaCon, next year. I know I will be at Dark Side of the Con this spring, but not as a designer. I'm accompanying a friend, but I will be bouncing about in Oogie Boogie and various other costumes, kind of being my own one-woman fashion show as I do.
That is great. I'm really glad that you talked about Oogie Boogie, actually, because of course I'm always casting my brain about like who are the other Yuletide monsters. You know, it's like obviously you know Perchta's one and Krampus is one and the Mighty Luid. You know the rat battling horror skeleton. My mind is always reaching around, and of course in the making the calendar I thought, all right, the Abominable Snowman is canonically a Yuletide monster because of the old stop motion movies from when I was a kid and so forth, but I hadn't put it together that Oogie Boogie is actually underneath that big tent.
Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know where Tim Burton brought Boogie from, but Boogie is out in that ether.
The Oogie Boogie Man. Exactly. Well, now you mentioned that you have a social media, that kind of thing. Why don't you share all that information so folks know where and how to find you and find pictures of your other amazing creations?
Yes. So on Instagram and the Facebooks, I am at Diamond and Shadow Apparel. And that's my business. That's my, kind of the formal side of things. Mm-hmm. But I'm also on Instagram as at Gothlet, but the O is a 0, so it's G0THLETTE.
I did not know that. I'll have to do that. Okay, great. Adorable. Well, thank you. Is there anything else that I should let you say and share about this particular subject, be it monsters, be it seamstressing, be it the making of art?
I intend to go further with this. I'm always into kind of confronting the idea of othering and other and death and that whole process and how death is the other and confronting that in my personal works. So there's a lot of like stuff bubbling in my brain and my sketchbooks that I want to eventually bring to the world and talk about and, fly that banner of death positivity and like end of life planning. I don't care how old you are. We're all going to die, but making it a beautiful, celebratory, artistic kind of a thing.
That is beautiful. Well, thank you. I hope that everyone has enjoyed the opportunity to see into the mind of Perchta's own seamstress here on Mary Meet the Monster. So I hope wherever you are, you can give her a round of applause. Woo! And be sure to check back tomorrow. Bye.
Well, there you have it. Hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. Please join me back here again tomorrow for another arty adventure on Mary Meet the Monster.